Hello, my name is Marcus Ruiz Evans, founder of the CalExit movement in 2012 with the book California's Next Century. Many have celebrated the loss of Donald Trump in the presidential elections. I find those celebrations misplaced, naive, and premature. Here's why. North Carolina and Alaska are going to go red. That will give Republicans 50% control of the Senate, allowing them to block any legislation. Now, the only opportunity here is the two Senate races in Georgia. Democrats would have to win both of those in order to be able to stall Republican legislation. So, if Democrats win both of the runoff races in Georgia, they would have about 50 people in the Senate in comparison to the red side with 50 people. Now, Georgia is historically Republican, and it is highly unlikely that the Democrats will win either race, let alone both. Republicans only have to win one of those two races out there in order to have 51% of the Senate. So Republicans this week will have 50% of the Senate for the next 2 years. Depending on Georgia, they may pick up 1 to 2 more seats. They're likely to pick up at least one and unlikely to lose both. That means, with all likelihood, Georgia will give the Republican Senate 51%. That gives them a controlling majority. They can shut down any legislation that Joe Biden wants to pursue, which means no reforms will happen. Additionally, because the Senate is involved in the selection of Supreme Court justices, they will prevent the Supreme Court from being influenced by liberal new Supreme Court judges. Hence, the Supreme Court, which is now currently dominated by conservatives and more conservative than it has been since the 1970s, will stay conservative if the Republicans win just one of the two Georgia seats, which is highly likely. It's a Republican dominated area, and even with demographic shifts, it's unlikely that Georgia will lose both Senate seats to Republicans. So 51% of the Senate will likely be Republican. We will know that in January with the Georgia races. Currently, it's 50%, which is enough to stall any Democratic legislation. And with 50 or 51%, they should be able to stall any change to the Supreme Court and any progressive legislation, which means the Supreme Court can continue to remove your rights on DACA, healthcare, LGBTQ, and women's rights. And there will be nothing that under American law you can do. The Constitution enshrines the Senate as the gatekeeper to laws being passed and the gatekeeper to changes in the Supreme Court. If you do not have control of the Senate at least 51%, there will be no progressive legislation being passed. There will be no reforms, and there will be no way to get around any of the Supreme Court decisions that will retrocede laws back decades into where they were and take away your rights. Now, you can put all of your hopes on Democrats winning 2 Senate seats in Georgia and therefore being able to meet the Republicans 50-50. So the Republicans would not be in such a dominant position, but they would be able to stall a lot of legislation. So if Georgia goes 2 seats blue, then yes, the Democrats will be in a better position. And I understand people don't want to hear that, but it's highly unlikely. But let's get to the things that we know now definitively. One of the good things about this election was that it proved many of the talking points that we have in CalExit. And let's get right to it. In 2020, Biden won the popular vote by 76.2 million to Trump's 71.5, or Biden won by about 4 to 5 million votes. In California, Biden received 9.7 million votes, which means that in 2020, Biden won only by the percentage of California voters. That means that in 2020, outside of California, a majority of Americans voted for Trump. I want to be very clear about that. This is not the Electoral College. This is the popular vote. Biden only won the popular vote by the number of Californians. That means that outside of California, this election, a majority of Americans voted for Donald Trump. This is the exact same event that happened in 2016. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but only by the votes here in California, which means in both in 2016 and the following election, now 2 elections in a row, America only went popular vote to not Trump because of California. That means in 2016 and 2020, you have definitive proof that a majority of people outside of California like Trump. That's not the Electoral College, that's Americans, and a majority of them backed him. 2016, after he said it's okay to victimize women, after he said horrible things about minorities, and then in 2020, they doubled down on ignorance. Dave Chappelle was on the Saturday Night Live show recently and admitted that half of America likes this man. Additionally, look at European news. They are disgusted with America. Everybody heard Joe Biden say that this election is about the soul and character of America. Trump was going to be massively shut down. Well, that didn't happen. What the Europeans and the rest of the world saw was half of America backed bigotry and racism, or was at least not that upset about it. They were willing to hang with that guy. As I like to say, if you have a poster about how you like lower taxes and you stand out in public for 8 hours, okay. But if you choose to stand right next to a guy in a KKK robe and another guy with swastikas all over his face, and you do that for 8 hours in a day, no one's going to buy that you weren't racist at all. You can say, hey, I didn't wear the robe. I didn't have those swastikas on me. But why did you hang out next to 2 people right next to him for 8 hours, willing to be associated with them? Obviously, those beliefs don't disgust you that much. And the Europeans have seen that, and the rest of the world. Let me give you a quick quote from NPR. To Europe now, where some people are disappointed by the knife-edge results. President Trump's surprise victory 4 years ago shook the confidence of many here in American democracy. Trump's showing yesterday has only compounded those concerns. This is NPR on November 4th, how Europe is reacting to the U.S. election. You could write off that Americans were tricked and they didn't know. I never bought that. I think he said Mexicans are rapists and it's okay to victimize women, and half of America voted for him. People wanted to say maybe they were tricked, maybe they didn't know. You've had 4 years. You damn well know who this guy is. And half the country still voted for him. So, America is a fundamentally racist nation. We now can say that conclusively. We have 2 data sets to prove that. And the rest of the world already sees that. This has been a talking point at CalExit since 2014. We were called extremists when you said that America is a fundamentally racist nation. People pointed to Obama and said, well, look at that, can't be. And we said, here's other signs. This is still a racist country. And you are still sharing this country with a majority of people who think racism is okay or are tolerating it or would back ideas that would never fly here. We now know that for a fact. And the entire rest of the world has noticed it too. Joe Biden only won by about 3%. 3% is the statistical margin of error. That's not a landslide. There was no repudiation of Trump. Americans showed that they like what Trump has to say and they're willing to tolerate it. That makes America a fundamentally racist nation. As I like to say to people, if I walked up to you and I took orange paint and I painted 48% of your face orange, and someone walks up and goes, wow, you're orange, and you look at them and go, don't call me orange, I'm 52% not orange. Is anyone going to buy that? They're going to look at your face, it's 48% orange, and they're going to conclude you're half orange. And you're running around acting like you ain't orange at all. No one's buying it at all. 2 elections in a row where half of America voted for the orange man won. Is all the world needs to see that America is, as we in CalExit have said, a fundamentally racist society. But let's finally get to Joe Biden himself. So Joe Biden said that he was the decent man. Let's talk about what that means. Joe Biden went very hard for fracking, literally while California was burning due to climate change. The number one thing contributing to climate change is oil and the use of it. Well, we had a presidential election where the choice was between a guy who likes fracking and a guy who likes fracking, while California is burning down. That's not a California value. And the fact that you would back fracking while we're literally being destroyed because of climate change shows massive insensitivity to California values. Joe Biden was also with the Obama administration. They invented the policy of separating children from their parents at the border and placing children in cages. Donald Trump is obviously horrible and obviously really likes that policy and took it as far as he could and tried to make it as horrible as he wanted. But Donald Trump did not invent that policy. In fact, at the second presidential debate, he confronted Biden with that, and Biden couldn't refute it. So we live in a country where the choice is between a guy who really likes separating children from their parents and placing them in prison-like conditions, and the guy who didn't really like it, but he invented it and stood by while it was implemented. Again, neither one of those are California values. Joe Biden has said straight up he's not going to do anything on universal health care. Trump also will never do that. Universal health care is a popular idea here in California. So again, no universal health care, and the other guy says the same thing. Neither of those are California values. And finally, Joe Biden already has many Wall Street bankers on his cabinet and advising him, just like Donald Trump. California lost during the housing collapse of 2008, created by Wall Street bankers. We were the worst hit. We had the most losses, and we lost the most amount of money with the most number of people hurt. So the decent president is someone who says, let's keep drilling for oil in the worst, most environmentally polluting way possible while California is burning. Let's continue to keep kids in cages. And it's okay that I invented that policy, something that would never happen in California. Let's never have universal health care, something that's very popular here. And let's continue to back Wall Street when they literally brought California to its knees. That's the decent guy. I understand Trump is horrible, and yes, he is a white supremacist, and I understand Joe Biden is not. But neither of these guys back California values. You're going to get nothing that you want in California. And that's if Biden had control, which he probably isn't going to, of the Senate. So America's still racist. Half of them are. They will block all your key legislation. They will protect the Supreme Court while it removes all of your rights. And even if they had power, Biden would continue to espouse a series of ideas that Californians would never tolerate. That's why Joe Biden never came to the Democratic primary here in California. He was the only one. The reason is that he was afraid of losing the nomination. He knew that California is full of people like me, Latinos, who actually know his record and would call him out. His team was afraid that he would be called out in front of the other Democrats and lose. So his reputation with Latinos and immigration is so horrible. The guy was terrified of coming to the Democratic primary, and he was the only Democratic to do it. That is a horrible red flag for California. See you later.